This is a Norton Medium India. It's 11.5 inches long, about 2.5 inches wide, and it's a half-inch thick. This was a gift from Wayne Bean. Both the stones in this video are gifts from Wayne Bean. Thank you, Wayne. I want to do a series of knives, a series of kitchen knives, because I really think that, despite all the guys that like to, and gals that like to collect knives, people that use them in their work and all of that, I really think that probably, even with all of that, the most commonly used knife in this country is a kitchen knife of some kind. And so I want to run through a series of kitchen knife sharpenings and introduce you to what I think you pretty much can't live without in the kitchen, and what I think are nice to have but are optional. I have both types of knives. They're not very expensive. But I have this long, wide stone because this particular size stone, this stone is meant to be a replacement for a sharpening system that Norton puts out. They call it a multi-stone system. I've heard it called tri-stone, tri-hone, but what it amounts to is basically a triangular shaped block that has this stone and a couple of other types of stones on it. It's a tool that's been used for a very, very long time in American kitchens. And I mean commercial kitchens and meat cutteries, butchers and things like that. And Norton now offers them with limited choices in stones unless you buy extra stones. In other words, this one, I think the kit that takes this size stone has a coarse crystalline, a medium India, and a soft Arkansas on it. And that's as far as they go into Arkansas stones now. But they used to offer them with your choice of stones, and a lot of times what you would get is like a medium India oil stone, a soft, and like a hard or a black or a translucent. And they were all over the restaurants and all over commercial kitchens and meat cutteries and stuff like that. And they have a history with them. The history of Western knives, cooking knives in this country, and these stones are pretty much linked together in a lot of ways. And so I wanted these stones, this stone in particular, before I started this series. There may be a second part to this series. In other words, like a sequel to this series. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the knife that I think every home cook needs more than any other. Now, this is a Western chef's knife. It's an 8-inch. It's a KitchenAid. I don't know if this is a high-dollar KitchenAid or a low-dollar KitchenAid as far as high-dollar KitchenAid goes. Hear that ring, though? That's that steel. It's not. That tells me there's good steel in this blade. But now you might choose a Santoku knife for the main knife in your kitchen. And my wife used a really long carving knife from old hickory that was passed down from like her mother or her grandmother, and that's all she ever used. Okay, there are many cooks and chefs that choose something besides a Western, in other words, German profile, because the French profile is more akin, it's much straighter along its length. But you could choose a lot of different things, but for me and for what I do in the kitchen, this knife, although I use a 9 or 10 inch one and not an 8-inch one, for most of the tasks in the kitchen, will do almost everything you need. There's only one other knife, and when we get to it, I'll talk about it, that I think is really super essential in a kitchen. So what we're going to do is we're going to sharpen up this knife, and we're going to start on this medium India. I'm going to use this as my coarse stone, or the stone that I would draw up a burr on. And I'm going to use mineral oil. I have Norton honing oil, but on a super low, well, what I would consider super low grit, this is a 240 grit stone. Yes, there's a lot lower grit than that. So you'll find that grit progression and stuff like that is in the eye of the one using it. A medium stone can end up being a coarse stone. A coarse stone could end up being a medium stone. A fine stone could end up being a medium stone, and a finer stone after that. It just depends. I pick a progression, and then I decide what are my lower grits and my mid grits and my high grits and stuff like that. So this knife, though, if you notice, this knife has a full bolster. Nowadays, these are not popular anymore. The knife makers end up grinding that off right about halfway down, and this whole section here would be sharp. But this full bolster has a purpose. The purpose is, if I'm cutting things and somehow one of my fingers ends up underneath the blade, the knife won't cut me. Okay. These are the knives that I prefer. Everybody else doesn't like them because they're harder to sharpen and they take more care. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. But if you look, this knife was used on a steel. A steel was used on this knife, and I used a steel on this knife, on all of my kitchen knives, to keep them sharp. But you see that? I don't know if you can see that little rounded section there where the bevel's got like a notch in it almost. It's not really on this side, but it would be over time. What that is that steel hitting that bolster, and what it does is it raises, I don't know if you can see, but if you look right here, it's drawn the steel out and raised it up above the rest of the knife edge. So what you have to do from time to time, and if you do this when you sharpen, every time you sharpen the blade, or every couple of times that you sharpen the blade, if you reduce that bolster, you won't really have to deal with that. But what I have to do is I have to bring that down so that it's level. Otherwise, when I go to chop, this piece will hit the board before the full blade goes all the way through the food, and it won't cut properly. So I'm going to take this medium grit India stone, and it's going to be used as a coarse stone to correct that bevel, or that bolster and the edge of this knife, so the knife will cut properly. Another problem that they've done is they have sharpened. You see how this bolster is round? Okay, well, you need to start sharpening in front of where that round portion is, not into it and past it. Just a little bit in front of it. Whoever sharpened the knife did not understand how to actually sharpen the blade. And I'm going to tilt it up because I'm going to work on that bolster a bit too and get it out of the way before I move on. And I need to kind of tilt the knife that way a bit. Because that roundness has created a different shape on this side than on that side. So, and I want to kind of round that bolster a bit to make it stay looking pretty. But you see now, the bolster is leaning down, and that's pretty much straight. I'm going to give it just a little bit more. If you look at the other side, it's straight on that side. So I'm going to give it just a little bit more. Oh, by the way, the reason I'm doing this, and I said whoever sharpened it last, is because I just got this knife. I paid 99 cents for it at Goodwill. And I bought like 5 of these KitchenAid knives for that price. Can't hurt anything. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the knife and that edge that I've been working on right here, that I ground, it's thicker than the rest of this blade. So I want to give it a few. It's not that much of a consequence because I'm not going to cut right here. I'll cut right about there on this blade. I'm not going to cut right here. I'll be cutting from about here forward. But I do want to kind of give this a head start. And you might say to me, well, won't that make the bevel? And even no, not if you know what you're doing. Because what I'm going to do, I'll show you what I'm going to do here in a minute. Alright. Now, what I'm going to do now, the action of doing this right here will blend that into the whole of the cutting edge, and there won't be any problems doing this. Alright, we've got the blending strokes. Do I have a burr? No. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move to standard technique. Single stroke. I don't advise you doing that. I took the chance. Okay, that's got a burr. Make sure it's at the tip. Yeah, all the way from heel to tip. So I'm going to flip the knife over. And do that again. Alright. Not quite. Doing more of a heel forward stroke because I don't have that burr right at that very heel, and I want to concentrate on that. Now what I'm going to do, let's clean this stone first, because the sooner you clean it, the more swarf particles and metal particles and stuff like that you will get out of the stone. If you let it sit, they will be harder to remove. So you want to, that's something nobody tells you when they say, oh, this is how you clean an oil stone. If you let that crap sit on your stone, it's hard to get it out. And these woodworkers that you see, they got a stone, an India stone, or particularly an India stone, or a soft Arkansas stone, and they got it in a little wooden box, and they open the wooden box, and it's black on top with swarf and crud and old beat up oil and used oil and all. You're never going to get that stone properly clean. Now what I'm going to do now is, normally I would go to a soft, but I'm going to go to this black. There's no law that says I have to go to a soft. I'm going to move to this black. And because that stone is coarser than that fine India that I use, that stone is about 240, the fine India is about 400. It is harder for that stone to remove all of the burr. It's coarse enough that it keeps grinding steel, so it keeps creating a burr. I had a big burr. Now I have a little burr on the side of this, on this side of this edge. And the last time I was doing the straight ahead strokes to get a burr, I was pulling a burr up to this side. So the burr has moved. Most of it is off, but there is a nice distinct fine wire burr still on this knife because that 240 grit can't take it all off. So you move to a stone like this and use, or a soft Arkansas, and use single strokes on either side alternating to pull or tease that burr off the edge of the knife completely. This is a beautiful stone as well. Now I'm moving pretty fast because I've used these stones for a long time. You want to be really careful how you lay an edge on one of these harder Arkansas stones or it'll trash it. Razor flipping sharp. I don't know if you can see it or not. Razor sharp. That'll work. All along the entire edge. That's how you sharpen a knife, folks. And that's ready to go. Actually, let's do the showy thing. Got some hairs on it. Thank you for watching. 8-inch chef's knife. Medium India. Hard Arkansas stone. Later.